Everybody talks about what to buy, when to buy, and how this set is different. And nobody talks about the part that actually determines whether you make money. And that part is getting out. And if that sounds obvious, let me prove to you that it might not be that simple with one quick question. If I gave you a sealed booster box case right now, and you knew that it was going to be worth double in 3 years, could you actually turn that into a profit? I'm talking real money in your account, not portfolio value, but actual cash. Because most people can't, and that's because they don't have an exit plan and they have an attachment to the product. Here's what usually ends up happening. You buy a product because you think it's a safe bet. The market, it goes up, and your brain starts doing math that it has no business doing. You're not calculating risk anymore, you're calculating fantasy. You're saying to yourself, what if this booster box case goes to $1,000? What if it goes to $2,000? Or what if it does what Evolving Skies did? And now you're invested in a future price that doesn't even exist yet. Then, a little bit down the road, the set starts moving in price, and you get your chance. And instead of selling, you freeze. You tell yourself that you'll sell later, and you tell yourself, I don't want to be the guy who sold too early. Or you tell yourself that the real money is holding this box longer. So you hold. But then something else happens. A reprint, the market takes a downturn, whatever, but the price softens. And now you're not up, you're back to even. So you tell yourself, I'll just hold on to it and sell it when the price recovers. And that cycle is exactly how people end up with a closet full of product and zero realized profit. So today we're going to talk about the exit strategy that nobody talks about. A real strategy that you can repeat without needing perfect timing. And I'm going to give it to you in a way that you can actually use. What to decide before you buy, what to watch while you hold, and exactly how to sell it before you completely sabotage yourself. Because the truth is simple. Entry gets all of the attention, but the exit is what determines your outcome. All right, let's start with one of the biggest misconceptions in Pokémon investing. And that is that most investors are just collectors pretending to be investors. And that's not an insult. That's just reality. A collector buys because they like it. An investor buys because the structure to make money makes sense. A collector measures their success by what they own, while an investor measures their success by what they realize. And that difference matters because collectors, they don't want to sell, but investors, they have to. And if you're feeling a little defensive right now, good. That's an honest reaction. I've been there and I'm still there. I've pulled a special illustration rare or ordered a Pokemon Center ETB or bought a booster box case close to MSRP and thought, I can't sell this. This is special. And that's fine. That's the hobby. But as soon as you call it investing, you need to have rules. So here's your exit strategy in one sentence. You don't sell your investment at a set price. You sell it when the reason why you bought it no longer makes sense, and you can scale out when liquidity spikes. That's the whole thing. Selling conditions changing, plus looking for liquidity windows. Now, let me unpack it because that sentence is easy to say, but hard to live by. When you're buying sealed product to hold, you should be able to answer 3 questions in plain English. Number 1, why am I buying this? Number 2, what would prove me wrong? Number 3, what would make me sell? Most people only answer that first question. They buy a set because they think the chase card is going to be more iconic than other chase cards in that set, or they predict the supply for that set is somehow going to be lower than other sets. But they never define what the wrong investment looks like, and they never define what their exit strategy needs to look like. So they end up making their selling decisions at the worst possible moment. And that's when they're emotional. Here's what reason-based buying actually means. Let's say your reason for buying a sealed set is because wave 2 of this particular set was restrained, the supply was controlled, and the booster boxes formed an early floor price of around $200. That's perfect. That is what a structural reason to buy should look like. But what would proving that wrong look like? A late, heavy reprint that turned into constant and consistent restocks? And then boxes sitting closer to MSRP for months? If that happens, then your reason for buying just fell apart. And your exit strategy shouldn't be, I'm going to wait until that booster box gets back up to the price that I was looking to sell it at. Your exit strategy now should be, I need to reduce risk because the structural advantage that I bought, it's gone. And that feels weird because it doesn't always require the price to collapse. It requires you to admit the reality early, and that's the part that nobody wants to talk about. Now let's talk about the second part, and that's scaling out when liquidity spikes. This is where most people get it backwards because they sell when they're scared and then they hold when they're excited. If you bought a booster box and it slowly grinds from $160 a box to $200 over the course of 2 years, most people get bored and they sell. If a booster box starts at $200 and then jumps to $280 in the first 3 weeks because the chase card went nuclear, people get excited and they hold. But liquidity is the highest whenever the excitement around a set is the highest. And if your goal is to turn cardboard into cash, you want to sell when the buyers are the most aggressive, not when they're indifferent about a set. So here's a practical rule. When price moves faster than fundamentals, you need to trim down your inventory on that particular investment. And that's not because you hate the set or because you think the set is dead, but because the biggest profits short term that you're going to make on that set are whenever attention is the highest. And if you're holding booster boxes, ETBs, booster box cases, whatever, your exit plan should be built around 3 triggers. Trigger number 1 is when supply expands beyond demand. And what this looks like is when you're starting to see wave after wave of restocks, or you walk into your local card store and you see that product sitting on the shelf time after time, or you're online and you see that price keep going a little bit lower and a little bit lower and then a little bit lower. This is the part where most people talk themselves into holding because they think that that price is going to recover. But sealed product pricing doesn't recover just because you want it to. It only recovers whenever the supply out in the market gets absorbed. And if supply expands, then absorption takes longer and your money gets stuck. And sometimes it gets stuck for years. Trigger number 2 is a hype-driven liquidity spike. This is the moment where the set that you're looking to buy is the main character for the week. The chase card from the set that you're looking at is being compared to other chase cards from other sets. A celebrity might be posting about it, or a big content creator on YouTube is hyping it as the next big thing. And when that happens, you see prices move aggressively. And that's not always the top. And I'm not saying that you can know exactly when the peak is. But what I am saying is that right there is a high liquidity moment where exiting a portion of your inventory is the smart play. If you have a booster box case and the market suddenly gives you a 50% return in a month, that is a gift. That is a chance to lower your investment risk a little bit. Which leads to trigger number 3, and that's de-risking milestones. This is the most boring, but definitely the most powerful part of the entire strategy. When your position hits a certain level, you don't react emotionally. You follow a rule. And there's a bunch of different rules that you can adhere to, but here's a couple examples you can follow. The first example that I'm going to give you is if you're holding on to some sealed product and it goes up 30%, sell just enough to recover your initial investment. And then keep the remaining inventory as house money. And now your downside is dramatically reduced. A second example would be whenever your investment doubles, sell half. When it triples, sell another quarter. And then keep the final quarter as long-term optionality. And you can play with and adjust those numbers, but the point is that you're converting those gains into profit gradually instead of trying to find that one perfect exit point. Now I want to address the psychological problem that ruins most exits, and that's regret aversion bias. And that is where investors fear the pain of future regret more than the immediate risk of loss. And that regret is why a lot of people don't sell and they hold on to product way longer than they should. Everyone imagines a future where they sell whatever they're holding on to, and then a couple years down the road, they see that price shoot up really high. They picture the videos and the comments on YouTube about how everyone sold too early, and they don't want to be kicking themselves saying, "Oh, I was so stupid for selling that." So they just avoid selling it all. But here's how you fix that regret. You stop aiming for the very top. The market's peak is not your job. Your job is to follow your plan and to make high quality exits when they appear. If you sell a portion of what you're holding and it still goes higher, that's not failure. You have to think about that as the cost of doing business. Because if you never sell and the product collapses, that's not bad luck. That's just really bad planning. Your exit plan should include at least 2 paths for liquidity. Route A is the fastest, but it has a lower net return and higher uncertainty. And that's selling through TCG Player, eBay, services like PWCC, or Collector's Cache. And if you don't plan your route, you'll panic when you need cash, and you'll usually make the worst deal. So here's what I do before I buy a large position on any sealed product. I decide what my primary exit path is going to be, and I also decide what my backup exit path is going to be. If the market spikes, I know where it's going. And if I need liquidity, I know where it's going. And that alone reduces your anxiety and improves your execution. Now I want to give you a checklist that will upgrade your investing immediately. Before you buy, write this down. You need to know what your selling strategy is, what your decision to invest being proven wrong looks like, what will trigger the first sell-off of your investment, what triggers a full exit. When you go to sell it, what is your primary channel? And if that channel doesn't work, what is your backup sell channel going to look like? And if you can't fill that out confidently, take a minute and decide about whether you really need to be investing in this. Because buying without an exit plan is how you end up being up on paper, but being broke in real life. But let's not forget about time, because time is the silent killer. A lot of people say, I'm holding long term, like it's some kind of flex. Long term is only powerful whenever the structure for that set supports it. Because let's face it, not every set is going to age like Cosmic Eclipse, Evolving Skies, Team Up, or Fusion Strike. If you're holding a deep printed modern set with constant availability, your long term might look like 8 years or longer. And that might still pay off. But your money is frozen for a long time, usually longer than most people want. Opportunity cost matters. You don't just ask yourself, will this be worth more one day? You ask yourself, is this the best product for my money to be parked in over the next few years? And that question forces you to compare and not just justify the purchase. The next part is going to sound harsh, but it's going to save you money. If you need money, you should not be investing it in Pokémon. Pokémon investing works the best when you can leave it alone. If you're investing rent money or money that you need to have liquid, you're probably going to exit at the worst time. So a practical exit rule is also a personal finance rule. Keep yourself a cash buffer, because then you're not going to be forced to sell at the weakest point. That's it. You don't need perfect predictions. You need consistent execution. Which brings us back to the title of this video. The exit strategy that nobody talks about is not a secret website or a magic price target. It's the discipline to treat Pokémon like an investment and not a relationship. And that's hard. I get it. And it's the willingness to take your profit in stages, so you're not relying on that one perfect buying decision to determine the future of your money. If you do that, you'll realize something most people never learn. The real skill in Pokémon investing isn't spotting opportunities. It's managing your exits. Because anybody can buy a booster box, but very few people can turn that into real profit without getting in their own way. So the next time you're about to buy a case of booster boxes, pause and ask yourself a question that most people avoid. What would make me sell this? And write that answer down. If you don't have an answer, you're not investing, you're hoping. And hope is the most expensive exit strategy in the hobby. So build the exit first, then buy the product. That one habit alone will change your results forever when it comes to Pokémon investing. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope you guys join us for the next one. Bye.